The beach at night was supposed to be a serene escape. But for Lucy and her friends, it became something entirely different. They had planned this trip for months, a weekend getaway to the secluded shores of Hollow Bay. The sky was clear, the stars twinkling like tiny, distant promises of peace. Lucy, Jake, Mia, and Tom set up their tents on the sandy shore, laughing and joking around a small campfire. The air was filled with the smell of roasting marshmallows and the sound of the gentle waves lapping against the beach. But as the moon rose higher, the wind picked up, bringing with it an eerie chill. Lucy felt it first, a shiver that ran down her spine despite the warm night. She glanced at the old beach house a few hundred yards away. It had been abandoned for years, the locals said. It stood there, a dark shadow against the sky, its windows like empty eyes watching them. "Let's explore that house," Jake suggested, his voice breaking the silence. Mia and Tom hesitated, but Lucy nodded. "Yeah, why not? It's just an old house." They grabbed their flashlights and made their way across the beach, their laughter fading as they approached the house. The closer they got, the more oppressive the air felt. Lucy's heart began to race. The door creaked open with a loud, drawn-out groan. The air inside was musty, filled with the scent of decay and neglect. Dust motes danced in the beams of their flashlights as they stepped inside. "Why did we come here again?" Mia whispered, clutching Tom's arm. "Just for fun," Jake replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. They explored the ground floor first, their footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. Old furniture lay covered in dust, and the walls were adorned with faded pictures of the house's former occupants. Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Let's go upstairs," Lucy suggested, though her voice trembled slightly. The staircase creaked under their weight as they ascended. The second floor was in even worse condition, with broken floorboards and cobwebs hanging like ghostly drapes. They split up to explore the rooms, but Lucy stayed close to Jake. In one room, Lucy found an old diary. The pages were yellowed and brittle, but she could still make out the writing. It belonged to a girl named Eliza, who had lived in the house long ago. The entries were filled with stories of a happy childhood, but the last few pages were different. They spoke of strange noises at night and shadows that moved on their own. "Guys, I think we should leave," Lucy said, her voice shaky. "This place gives me the creeps." But before they could decide, Jake's flashlight flickered and died. "Great, now what?" he muttered. "Let's head back," Tom suggested. But then they heard it, a faint whispering sound coming from below. "Did you hear that?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with fear. They followed the sound to a door at the end of the hall. It led to the basement. The air grew colder as they descended the stairs, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. The basement was filled with old furniture and boxes, most of it covered in a thick layer of dust. In the corner, they found an old trunk. Jake pried it open, revealing a collection of old toys and clothes, but beneath them was something else. An old photograph of Eliza and her family, their faces eerily familiar. "This is creepy," Lucy whispered, but then she noticed something else. There was another diary, hidden at the bottom of the trunk. She opened it to the last entry, dated just before Eliza's family disappeared. "They're here," it read. "The shadows are real. They come at night whispering my name. We can't escape." The air grew colder still, and the whispering sound grew louder, more insistent. The shadows on the walls seemed to move of their own accord, stretching and twisting in unnatural ways. "We need to get out of here," Tom said, his voice trembling. But as they turned to leave, the basement door slammed shut. Their flashlights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in as they fumbled for their flashlights. Lucy's hands shook as she tried to turn hers back on. When it finally flickered to life, she saw them, shadows moving toward them, their forms shifting and changing. "Run!" Jake shouted, grabbing Lucy's hand. They ran up the stairs, the shadows following close behind. The house seemed to come alive, the walls groaning and creaking as if trying to trap them inside. They burst out the front door and ran back to their campfire, gasping for breath. They huddled by the campfire, their hearts racing. The beach seemed eerily quiet, the only sound the crackling of the fire. But they knew they weren't alone. "We need to leave," Mia said, her voice trembling. But as they stood up to pack their things, the shadows appeared again, encircling them. The whispering grew louder, more frantic. "We can't escape," Lucy whispered, remembering Eliza's diary. Jake grabbed a piece of wood from the fire and swung it at the shadows, but it passed right through them. The shadows closed in, their forms growing darker and more solid. Lucy closed her eyes, thinking of Eliza and her family. They had faced the same terror, unable to escape. But then she remembered something else, an old legend about the beach. The locals had whispered it, saying the spirits of the sea could be appeased with a gift. "Quick, throw something into the fire," Lucy shouted. They grabbed whatever they could find, an old photograph, a piece of driftwood, even a shell they had picked up earlier, and threw them into the flames. The shadows paused, the whispering growing softer. "It's working," Tom said, his voice filled with hope. They continued throwing things into the fire until they had nothing left. The shadows hesitated, then slowly began to retreat. The whispering faded, and the night grew still. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the shadows disappeared completely. The beach returned to its serene state, the waves gently lapping at the shore. Lucy and her friends sat around the dying campfire, exhausted but relieved. "We made it," Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. They packed up their things and left the beach, vowing never to return. The old beach house stood silent and empty, its secrets buried in the past. But as they walked away, Lucy glanced back one last time and saw a figure standing in the window, a young girl with sad, haunted eyes. Eliza. They never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered, a chilling reminder of the shadows that lurked in the dark corners of the world. And as they drove away from Hollow Bay, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had been watched, that the shadows might one day return. Years later, a new group of friends discovered the old beach house. They laughed at the warnings from the locals, dismissing them as mere ghost stories. But as they set up their campfire on the beach, they felt a chill in the air, and the whispering began again. Lucy's story was never forgotten. It became a legend in Hollow Bay, a tale told around campfires to warn those who dared to venture to the eerie beach at night. And the old sign, half buried in the sand, stood as a silent testament to the horrors that awaited those who ignored the warnings. For in the quiet corners of the world, where shadows and whispers reign, the past never truly dies.
Thank you for watching Midnight Knocks. If you enjoyed our horror stories, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more spine-chilling tales. Don't forget to check out our other videos for more eerie adventures. Until next time, stay spooky.